The morning sun cast long, eerie shadows across the concrete expanse of the warehouse yard. Olivia adjusted her hard hat, the bright yellow standing out starkly against the gray gloom of the aging building. As the new site manager, she was determined to turn this neglected warehouse into a model of efficiency. Yet, the whispered tales from the locals about its dark history nagged at the back of her mind. She stepped inside, the heavy metal door creaking ominously. The air was thick with the scent of dust and something else, something burnt, like the lingering ghost of a fire long extinguished. Her footsteps echoed hollowly in the vast empty space, mingling with the distant hum of machinery. "Morning, Olivia," called out Jeff, the foreman, from across the cavernous room. He was an older man, grizzled and weathered, with eyes that seemed to have seen too much. "Welcome to your new kingdom." Olivia managed to smile. "Thanks, Jeff. Quite the place, isn't it?" "Yep. She's got character, that's for sure," he replied, though his tone was less than enthusiastic. He paused, glancing around as if wary of unseen eyes. "Just be careful. This place has its quirks." "Quirks?" Olivia echoed, raising an eyebrow. "Yeah, you know, old building, drafty. Sometimes the lights flicker. Nothing to worry about." He forced a chuckle that didn't reach his eyes. "Anyway, if you need anything, I'll be in the back." As Jeff walked away, Olivia couldn't shake the feeling that he was hiding something. She turned her attention to the warehouse floor, mapping out where new equipment would go, but her thoughts kept drifting to the past. She knew the basics. A catastrophic fire had ravaged this place decades ago, claiming the lives of several workers. But the details were murky, shrouded in time and perhaps deliberate forgetfulness. As the day progressed, Olivia met with the team, assigning tasks and getting to know the employees. Most seemed eager to work, but a few shared the same wary look as Jeff. By lunch, she decided to dig a little deeper into the warehouse's history. She found herself in a small, cluttered office tucked away in a corner of the building. Old files and records were stacked haphazardly, and a thick layer of dust coated everything. As she sifted through the papers, she came across a faded newspaper clipping. The headline read, "Tragic fire claims lives of warehouse workers." Beneath it was a grainy black and white photo of the aftermath, twisted metal and charred remains barely recognizable. Her fingers traced the edges of the clipping as she read the article. The fire had started in the dead of night, spreading quickly through the old wooden structure. Safety protocols had been woefully inadequate, and many of the workers had been trapped inside. It was a horrific scene, one that had left an indelible mark on the community. Olivia felt a chill run down her spine. She had always been a rational person, grounded in facts and figures, but there was something about this place that made her skin crawl. She glanced at the clock and realized she had been lost in the past for over an hour. Shaking off the unease, she decided to return to the floor. As she walked back, the warehouse seemed different, the shadows darker, the air colder. The hum of machinery sounded distant, almost as if it were coming from another time. She passed by a stack of crates and froze. There, in the dust on the floor, were footprints, small, childlike prints that hadn't been there before. Olivia's heart raced as she followed the prints, her breath catching in her throat. They led to a corner of the warehouse where a broken, charred doll lay forgotten. She picked it up, the blackened fabric crumbling at her touch. A whisper of a child's laughter echoed faintly around her, and she spun around, but saw nothing. "Just the wind," she told herself, her voice trembling. "Just the wind." But deep down, Olivia knew that something far more sinister lurked within the walls of the warehouse. Something that was waiting, watching, and perhaps longing for justice. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Casting the warehouse in an eerie twilight, Olivia made a silent vow. She would uncover the truth about the fire, no matter what it took. Because until the past was laid to rest, the echoes of those who perished would never truly be silent. The following days were a blur of activity as Olivia and her team worked tirelessly to bring the warehouse up to modern standards. New machinery arrived, and the air was filled with the sounds of progress, clanking metal, beeping forklifts, and the murmur of workers. Yet, despite the buzz of productivity, a palpable tension lingered. Olivia couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. She found herself glancing over her shoulder more often than usual, her senses on high alert. It seemed she wasn't alone in her unease. The employees whispered among themselves, sharing stories of cold drafts and flickering lights. Dismissing these as the quirks of an old building, Olivia tried to focus on the tasks at hand. One evening, as the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the warehouse, Olivia stayed late to finish some paperwork. The vast space was eerily silent, the usual hustle and bustle replaced by an oppressive stillness. She sat at her desk, the glow of her laptop screen casting a pale light in the dim room. A sudden chill swept through the air, causing her to shiver. The temperature had dropped significantly, and she wrapped her arms around herself, glancing up at the flickering overhead lights. "Not again," she muttered, rubbing her hands together to generate warmth. Just then, a faint sound reached her ears. A soft, rhythmic tapping, like someone drumming their fingers on a wooden surface. Olivia froze, listening intently. The tapping grew louder, more insistent, seeming to come from the far end of the warehouse. She stood up, her heart pounding in her chest. "Hello!" she called out, her voice echoing through the cavernous space. There was no response, only the persistent tapping. She grabbed a flashlight from her desk drawer and ventured toward the noise, her footsteps echoing on the concrete floor. As she walked, the tapping suddenly ceased, replaced by a low, mournful whisper. Olivia stopped in her tracks, her breath catching in her throat. The whisper was unintelligible, but it sent a chill down her spine. She swung the flashlight beam around, illuminating the dusty shelves and stacks of crates. "Who's there?" she demanded, trying to keep her voice steady. Silence. The whispering had stopped as abruptly as it had begun. Olivia turned to leave, but a glint of something shiny caught her eye. She approached cautiously, her flashlight revealing a small silver locket lying on the ground. She knelt down and picked it up, the metal cool against her skin. The locket was old, tarnished with age, and when she opened it, she found a faded photograph of a young woman and a child. Olivia's heart ached at the sight, a tangible connection to the lives lost in the fire. Suddenly, the overhead lights flickered violently, and the air grew colder still. Olivia felt a presence behind her, an oppressive weight that made it hard to breathe. She turned slowly, the flashlight trembling in her hand. There, just beyond the edge of the light, stood a shadowy figure. The figure was indistinct, more of a dark silhouette than a solid form, but Olivia could feel its eyes on her, watching with an intensity that made her skin crawl. She backed away slowly, clutching the locket to her chest. The figure didn't move, simply stood there, emanating a sense of sorrow and longing. Olivia stumbled back to her desk, her mind racing. She had to get out of there to clear her head and make sense of what she had seen. She grabbed her things and hurried out of the warehouse, the shadowy figure lingering in her thoughts. The next day, she gathered the team for a meeting. The tension was palpable as she recounted her experience. The employees exchanged uneasy glances, their faces reflecting a mixture of fear and curiosity. Jeff spoke up, his voice gruff. I've seen things too, Olivia. We all have. It's like the place is alive, haunted by the past. But we need to keep working. We can't let this get to us. Olivia nodded, but she knew it wouldn't be that simple. The warehouse held secrets, dark memories that refused to stay buried. And as the days turned into weeks, the strange occurrences only intensified. Tools went missing, only to reappear in strange places. Cold drafts swept through the building, even on the warmest days. And always, there was that feeling of being watched. Despite their efforts to dismiss the events as mere coincidences, the employees couldn't ignore the growing sense of dread. Olivia, determined to get to the bottom of it, spent her evenings poring over old records and articles, searching for clues about the fire and the lives it had claimed. One night, while sifting through a stack of old blueprints, she found a hidden compartment in her office wall. Inside was a bundle of letters, brittle with age. The handwriting was delicate, the ink faded, but she could still make out the words. They were love letters, written by one of the workers who had perished in the fire. As she read the letters, Olivia felt a profound sadness. The words spoke of dreams and plans for the future, a future that had been cruelly snatched away. She realized that the spirits haunting the warehouse were not malevolent. They were lost, searching for closure and justice. With renewed determination, Olivia vowed to uncover the truth and bring peace to the restless souls trapped within the warehouse walls. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but she couldn't ignore the echoes of the past any longer. The spirits had a story to tell, and she was determined to listen. The days seemed to blend into one another, each filled with an increasing sense of dread. The employees' unease had grown into palpable fear, and Olivia knew she had to find answers soon. She could feel the warehouse's grip tightening, its dark history seeping into the present. Late one evening, as the last rays of the sun faded from the sky, Olivia sat alone in her office, the bundle of old letters spread out before her. Each one was a testament to the lives lost, the dreams shattered. She read them carefully, hoping to glean any information that might help. A sudden knock at the door startled her, and she looked up to see Jeff standing there, his face pale and drawn. "Got a minute?" he asked, his voice strained. "Of course," Olivia replied, motioning for him to sit. "What's going on?" "It's happening more frequently," he said, sinking into the chair. "The whispers, the cold spots. Last night I heard voices calling my name. I swear, I saw someone standing at the end of the aisle, but when I went to check, there was no one there." Olivia frowned, her concern growing. "We need to figure out what they want. They're trying to communicate with us for a reason." Jeff nodded. "I've been talking to some of the older employees, those who remember their parents or grandparents talking about the fire. There's a lot of resentment, anger. The workers who died, they were treated poorly. Safety measures were ignored. It's like they want justice." Olivia sighed, feeling the weight of their task. "We need to find out who they were. Give them the recognition they deserve. Maybe that will bring them some peace." That night, Olivia stayed late again, poring over old records and blueprints. The warehouse was silent, the usual sounds of machinery and voices replaced by an eerie stillness. She felt a chill in the air, the temperature dropping rapidly. A faint whisper reached her ears, so soft she almost didn't hear it. She strained to listen, her heart pounding. The whisper grew louder, more distinct, and she realized it was calling her name. "Olivia." She turned slowly, the hairs on the back of her neck standing on end. There, in the dim light of her office, stood a ghostly figure. It was a woman, her face twisted in sorrow, her eyes hollow and haunting. "Help Help us, the spirit whispered, her voice echoing around the room. Find the truth. Set us free. Olivia swallowed hard, her voice barely a whisper. How? How can I help you? The ghostly woman pointed to the bundle of letters on Olivia's desk. They hold the key. Read them. Remember us. As quickly as she had appeared, the spirit vanished, leaving Olivia shivering in the cold, empty room. She stared at the letters, her mind racing. There had to be something she was missing, some clue hidden within the faded ink. She picked up the letters again, reading them with renewed focus. One letter in particular caught her attention. It was from a worker named Thomas, who had written to his wife about suspicious activities at the warehouse. He mentioned a locked room in the basement, one that only the supervisors had access to. He believed it contained important documents that could expose the negligence and corruption of the warehouse owners. Olivia's heart raced as she realized this could be the breakthrough they needed. She had to find that room and uncover its secrets. The next day, she gathered a small team of trusted employees, including Jeff. They made their way to the basement, the air growing colder with each step. The basement was a labyrinth of old storage rooms and unused equipment, dust and cobwebs covering everything. Olivia found the locked door mentioned in Thomas's letter. It was rusted and old, the padlock heavy with disuse. Jeff handed her a crowbar, and with a few strong pushes, the lock broke open. They stepped inside, the beam of their flashlights cutting through the darkness. The room was filled with old filing cabinets and stacks of documents. Olivia's heart pounded as she began to sift through the papers. There were maintenance logs, safety reports, and most importantly, memos detailing the dangerous working conditions and the owner's deliberate cover-up of safety violations. She held up one of the memos, her hands shaking. "This is it," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "This is what they've been waiting for." Jeff looked over her shoulder, his expression grim. "We need to take this to the authorities. These workers deserve justice." As they gathered the documents, the temperature in the room dropped further, and a soft whisper filled the air. "Thank you," it said, the voice echoing with relief and gratitude. Olivia felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The spirits were finally getting the justice they had been denied for so long, but she knew their journey wasn't over yet. They still had to face the consequences of uncovering such a dark secret. As they left the basement, Olivia glanced back one last time. She could almost see the ghostly figures of the workers, their faces no longer twisted in sorrow, but peaceful, finally at rest. The warehouse might have been haunted by its past, but now, with the truth revealed, there was hope for a brighter future. And Olivia was determined to honor the memory of those who had been lost, ensuring their stories would never be forgotten. The discovery of the hidden documents sent shockwaves through the warehouse. News spread quickly among the employees, and the atmosphere, already tense, became charged with a mix of fear and anticipation. Olivia and Jeff took the evidence to the authorities, but the process of seeking justice was slow and arduous. Meanwhile, the strange occurrences at the warehouse only intensified. The whispers grew louder, more frequent, and the temperature drops became more pronounced. It was clear that the spirits, though grateful for the progress, were growing impatient. One night, as Olivia worked late, she felt the familiar chill of the warehouse seep into her bones. She wrapped herself in a sweater, trying to focus on her work. But as the clock ticked towards midnight, the whispers started again, louder than ever before. "Olivia, help us. Remember us." The voices seemed to come from all directions, overlapping and blending into a cacophony of sorrow and desperation. Olivia stood up, her heart pounding. She knew she couldn't ignore the spirits any longer. She had to find a way to communicate with them, to understand what they needed. She left her office and wandered through the darkened warehouse, following the whispers. They led her to the far end of the building, where the shadows seemed to dance and writhe in the dim light. As she approached, she saw the faint outline of a figure standing near a stack of crates. It was Thomas, the worker from the letters. His ghostly form was clearer now, his face etched with a mixture of sadness and determination. He raised a hand, beckoning her closer. "Thomas," Olivia whispered, her voice trembling. "Is it really you?" The ghost nodded, his eyes filled with a haunting intensity. "You found the documents. You know the truth. But there's more. You must see what happened. You must witness our final moments." Before Olivia could respond, the room around her seemed to shift and blur. She felt a dizzying sensation, as if she were being pulled through time. When her vision cleared, she found herself standing in the same warehouse, but it was different. Older, darker, filled with the acrid smell of smoke. She was no longer alone. The warehouse was bustling with activity, workers moving quickly, their faces tense with anxiety. Olivia realized she was witnessing the night of the fire. She watched as Thomas and his fellow workers labored under dangerous conditions, their eyes darting nervously towards the supervisors who ignored their pleas for safety. The air grew thicker, the heat more intense. Olivia could see the flicker of flames in the distance, growing steadily closer. Panic erupted as the fire spread, workers scrambling to find an escape. But the exits were blocked, the doors locked to prevent theft. Screams filled the air, mingling with the roar of the flames. Olivia's heart ached as she watched Thomas try to lead a group of workers to safety, only to be engulfed by the inferno. The scene was horrific, the sense of helplessness overwhelming. She could feel the heat, the fear, the desperation of those final moments. Suddenly, the vision ended, and Olivia was back in the present, her body trembling with the intensity of what she had just experienced. She collapsed to her knees, tears streaming down her face. She had seen the truth, felt their pain, and she knew she couldn't rest until their souls were at peace. The next morning, she called an emergency meeting with the employees. She recounted her vision, describing the night of the fire in vivid detail. The room was silent, the weight of her words settling heavily on everyone present. "We need to honor them," Olivia said, her voice firm. "We need to make sure their story is told, that the truth is known. We owe it to them to ensure that nothing like this ever happens again." Jeff nodded in agreement, his eyes somber. "We can create a memorial, a place where we can remember them and their sacrifice. And we need to keep pushing for justice, to hold those responsible accountable." The employees murmured their agreement, a sense of solidarity and purpose filling the room. They began to plan the memorial, gathering stories and photographs of the workers who had perished. As they worked, the strange occurrences in the warehouse began to subside, the spirits seemingly appeased by the acknowledgement of their suffering. But Olivia knew their journey wasn't over. The visions had shown her the depth of the tragedy, the lives cut short, the dreams destroyed. She was more determined than ever to see justice served, to bring closure to the restless spirits. As the days passed, the memorial took shape, a tribute to the workers who had lost their lives in the fire. The warehouse, once a place of sorrow and fear, began to transform into a symbol of resilience and hope. And though the whispers still lingered, they were softer now, filled with a sense of gratitude. Olivia stood before the completed memorial, her heart heavy with emotion. She could almost see the spirits standing beside her, their faces peaceful at last. She whispered a silent promise to them, vowing to continue the fight for justice and to ensure their story was never forgotten. The warehouse had been a place of tragedy, but now it held the promise of a new beginning. And Olivia was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, determined to honor the past and build a brighter future. The memorial had brought a temporary sense of peace to the warehouse, but Olivia knew the battle was far from over. With the tragic history now publicly acknowledged, she was more determined than ever to dig deeper into the past. There were still many unanswered questions about the fire, and Olivia was convinced that the full truth had yet to be revealed. One afternoon, as she sorted through a stack of old maintenance logs in her office, Olivia received a call from Detective Harris, the officer assigned to investigate the historical case based on the documents she and Jeff had found. "Olivia, I've got some interesting news," Detective Harris said, his voice crackling over the line. "We've uncovered more records about the warehouse fire. There were multiple complaints filed by the workers about unsafe conditions, but they were mysteriously dismissed." Olivia's heart skipped a beat. "What happened to the complaints?" "Apparently they were all signed off by the same supervisor, a man named Richard Caldwell. He was the one in charge the night of the fire." "Richard Caldwell," Olivia repeated, jotting down the name. "Was he ever held accountable?" "No," Harris replied grimly. "He disappeared shortly after the fire, and there were rumors he was paid off to keep quiet. But here's the kicker. We found a connection between Caldwell and the current owners of the warehouse. They're descendants of the original owners." Olivia's mind raced with the implications. So the corruption spans generations. "Looks that way," Harris confirmed. "We're still digging, but I thought you should know. It might explain why the spirits are so restless. They need more than just acknowledgement. They need justice." After the call, Olivia couldn't shake the feeling that she was on the brink of uncovering something monumental. She shared the news with Jeff and a few trusted employees, and together they decided to continue investigating Caldwell's disappearance and the current owner's involvement. Olivia spent hours at the local library, combing through old newspapers and archives. She discovered that Caldwell had been involved in several other incidents of negligence and corruption, each case quietly swept under the rug. It was clear that he had been a key player in a web of deceit and exploitation. One evening, while reviewing her notes at home, Olivia received an email from an anonymous source. The subject line read, "For the truth," and it contained a single attachment. An old photograph of Richard Caldwell standing next to a group of men in front of the warehouse. Among them were the current owner's ancestors, their faces smug with confidence. The photo was dated just a week before the fire. Olivia's hands trembled as she realized the depth of the conspiracy. The fire had been no accident. It had been a calculated move to cover up years of corruption and abuse. The workers' deaths were the result of deliberate negligence, and the families had been left to suffer in silence. Determined to bring this information to light, Olivia arranged a meeting with a local journalist known for exposing corporate corruption. Together, they compiled a comprehensive report detailing the history of the warehouse, the negligence leading up to the fire, and the ongoing cover-up by the current owners. As the journalist prepared to publish the story, strange things began happening at the warehouse again. Tools went missing, cold drafts swept through the building, and the lights flickered more violently than before. The employees were on edge, their fear rekindled by the renewed activity. One night, as Olivia stayed late to finalize the report, she heard the now familiar whispering again. The voices were more urgent, almost pleading. "Olivia, time is running out. Justice must be served." She turned to see the ghostly figure of Thomas standing in the corner of her office. His eyes were filled with a mix of hope and desperation. "We're close, Thomas," Olivia said softly. "We're so close to exposing the truth. Hang on a little longer." Thomas nodded, his form flickering like a candle in the wind. "Thank you, Olivia. You've done more for us than anyone ever has. But be careful. They won't let the truth come out easily." With that, he vanished, leaving Olivia alone with her thoughts. She knew he was right. The warehouse owners would do everything in their power to keep their dark history buried. But she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, armed with the truth and the determination to see justice served. The next day, the article was published. It hit the community like a thunderclap, the shocking revelations sparking outrage and demands for accountability. The authorities reopened the investigation, and the warehouse owners were brought in for questioning. As the legal battle unfolded, the employees of the warehouse rallied together, their fear replaced by a sense of purpose and solidarity. They were determined to see justice for the workers who had lost their lives and to ensure that such a tragedy could never happen again. Olivia stood before the memorial, her heart heavy but hopeful. She could feel the presence of the spirits, their whispers now a gentle hum of gratitude and peace. They had waited so long for this moment, and she had helped bring it to fruition. The warehouse was still haunted by its past, but now, with the truth revealed, there was a path forward. Olivia vowed to honor the memory of those who had perished and to continue fighting for justice, no matter the cost. The fallout from the article's publication was immediate and intense. The community was outraged, and the investigation into the warehouse owner's involvement gained momentum. But as the quest for justice moved forward, the spirits within the warehouse became more active, their presence increasingly undeniable. One afternoon, Olivia was overseeing the installation of new equipment when she felt a sudden drop in temperature. She glanced around, noticing the other employees shivering and rubbing their arms. The lights flickered, casting eerie shadows across the floor. Before she could react, a forklift engine roared to life on its own, its headlights cutting through the dim light. The machine began to move, lifting a pallet of heavy boxes and swinging it dangerously close to the workers. Shouts of alarm filled the air as people scrambled to get out of the way. "Everyone, get back!" Olivia yelled, trying to maintain order. She grabbed the nearest worker, pulling him to safety as the forklift continued its erratic path. The machine finally came to a halt, the boxes crashing to the floor with a deafening thud. Olivia's heart pounded as she realized how close they had come to a disaster. She knew this wasn't just a mechanical malfunction. It was a message. Later that evening, as the employees gathered to discuss the incident, Jeff spoke up, his face pale and serious. "I've seen things like this before," he said quietly. "Back when the fire first happened, there were stories of objects moving on their own, of workers being possessed by the spirits of those who died." Olivia listened intently, her mind racing. "We need to find a way to communicate with them, to understand what they want. If they're this desperate, it means there's something we haven't uncovered yet." The employees agreed, their fear tempered by a growing resolve. They decided to seek the help of a renowned paranormal expert, Dr. Evelyn Sinclair, who had a reputation for dealing with restless spirits. Olivia contacted her immediately, explaining the situation. Dr. Sinclair arrived the next day, a tall woman with sharp eyes and an air of calm authority. She carried a black bag filled with various tools and instruments designed to detect and communicate with spirits. "Thank you for coming," Olivia said, leading her into the warehouse. "We've tried everything, but the activity is only getting worse." Dr. Sinclair nodded, her expression thoughtful. "Spirits become more active when they're trying to communicate something important. Let's see if we can find out what they're trying to tell us." As night fell, the warehouse was plunged into an uneasy silence. Dr. Sinclair set up her equipment in the center of the room, the faint glow of candles casting flickering shadows on the walls. The employees gathered around, watching nervously. Dr. Sinclair began by asking questions, her voice steady and calm. "Spirits of the warehouse, we seek to understand your pain. What is it that you need from us?" The air grew colder, and a soft whispering filled the room. The candles flickered, their flames dancing wildly. Olivia felt a chill run down her spine as the whispers grew louder, more distinct. Justice. Revenge. The truth. Dr. Sinclair continued, her eyes focused on the equipment. "We have uncovered much about your past. We know about the fire, the negligence. What more do you need us to do?" Suddenly, one of the employees, a young man named David, let out a gasp. His eyes rolled back and he collapsed to the floor, his body convulsing. Olivia rushed to his side, but before she could reach him, he sat up abruptly, his eyes wide and unseeing. "They must pay," he said in a voice that was not his own. "The truth must be known to all. They must face the consequences." Dr. Sinclair stepped forward, her voice gentle but firm. "Who must pay? Tell us what we need to do." David's head snapped towards her, his face twisted in a grimace. "The descendants. They carry the sins of their fathers. They must be held accountable." With that, David collapsed again, unconscious but breathing. Olivia's heart raced as she processed the message. The spirits wanted retribution against the current owners, the descendants of those who had caused the tragedy. Dr. Sinclair looked at Olivia, her expression grave. "We need to expose the full extent of their guilt. Only then will the spirits find peace." The next day, Olivia and her team redoubled their efforts, diving deeper into the records and uncovering more evidence of the current owner's involvement in covering up the past. They found financial records, emails, and internal memos that implicated the owners in a decades-long conspiracy to hide the truth. As they prepared to release this new information, the activity in the warehouse grew even more intense. Objects flew off shelves, equipment malfunctioned, and the employees experienced vivid, terrifying visions of the fire and the suffering of the workers. One evening, Olivia was in her office when she felt a cold hand grip her shoulder. She spun around to see Thomas standing there, his ghostly form more solid than before. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice filled with a mix of sorrow and gratitude. "You are close to bringing us peace. But you must hurry. They are getting desperate." Olivia nodded, her resolve strengthening. "We won't stop until justice is served." With the new evidence in hand, Olivia contacted the journalist again, and together they prepared a follow-up article, this time naming the current owners and detailing their complicity in the cover-up. The community's reaction was immediate and fierce, with calls for the owners to be held accountable and for the warehouse to be closed until the spirits could be laid to rest. As the legal proceedings began, Olivia and her team continued to work in the warehouse, their fear now overshadowed by a sense of purpose. The spirits' activity gradually decreased, and the oppressive atmosphere began to lift. But Olivia knew they couldn't truly rest until the final chapter of this dark history was written. They had to ensure that the owners faced the full consequences of their actions, and that the truth was known to all. The warehouse, once a place of tragedy and fear, was now a symbol of resilience and justice. And though the spirits still lingered, their whispers were softer, filled with a sense of hope and gratitude. Olivia and her team were determined to see this through to the end, to honor the memory of those who had perished, and to ensure that their story was never forgotten. The legal proceedings against the current warehouse owners ignited a media frenzy. Public outrage was palpable, and the once powerful owners found themselves under intense scrutiny. Olivia watched as the investigation unfolded, feeling a sense of vindication for the spirits who had been wronged. Despite the progress, the warehouse was far from peaceful. The spirits, while quieter, were not yet at rest. The intensity of the hauntings varied, but there were moments when the anger and frustration of the deceased workers became overwhelming. Olivia knew they needed more than just legal retribution. They needed true acknowledgement and justice. One evening, as Olivia and Jeff were working late, the temperature in the warehouse plummeted. A thick mist began to form, swirling around the room. Olivia's breath came out in visible puffs, and Jeff shivered beside her. "Something's happening," Jeff muttered, his eyes darting around nervously. The lights flickered violently, then went out completely, plunging them into darkness. Olivia fumbled for her flashlight, but before she could turn it on, an eerie glow filled the room. Ghostly figures appeared, their faces twisted in anger and pain. Thomas was among them, his expression more determined than ever. "Why are you still here?" Olivia asked, her voice shaking. "We've done everything we can to expose the truth." Thomas stepped forward, his form flickering. "The truth is out, but justice has not been served. They walk free while we suffer. We need more." "What do you need us to do?" Jeff asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Thomas's eyes blazed with intensity. "Confront them. Make them confess. Only then can we rest." Olivia felt a chill run down her spine. Confronting the owners directly was dangerous, but she knew it was the only way to truly set the spirits free. She looked at Jeff, who nodded, his jaw set with determination. "We'll do it," Olivia said firmly. "We'll confront them and get their confession." The next day, Olivia contacted Detective Harris and the journalist, explaining the spirits' demands. They agreed to help set up a meeting with the warehouse owners, under the guise of a final interview. The plan was risky, but Olivia was determined to see it through. The meeting was arranged for that evening at the warehouse. Olivia, Jeff, Detective Harris, and the journalist waited in the main office as the owners arrived, their faces a mix of arrogance and fear. The atmosphere was tense, the air heavy with anticipation. "Thank you for coming," Olivia began, her voice steady. "We wanted to give you one last chance to tell the truth. The whole truth." The owners exchanged nervous glances. "We've already said everything there is to say," one of them replied defensively. "This is harassment." Detective Harris stepped forward. "We have evidence that suggests otherwise. Financial records, emails, memos, all pointing to your involvement in covering up the unsafe conditions that led to the fire." The owners' faces paled, but they remained defiant. "You have no proof," one of them sneered. At that moment, the lights flickered and the temperature dropped. The spirits began to materialize, their forms more solid than ever before. The owners gasped in horror as Thomas and the other workers appeared, their faces contorted with anger. "You want proof?" Thomas's ghostly voice echoed through the room. "Look at us. We are the proof." The owners stumbled back, their bravado crumbling. Olivia felt a surge of determination. "Confess," she demanded. "Tell the truth about what happened that night." The spirits advanced, their presence overwhelming. The owners fell to their knees, their fear palpable. "We did it," one of them finally choked out. "We ignored the safety warnings. We locked the doors. We thought it would save money. We didn't mean for anyone to die." Tears streamed down Olivia's face as the owners confessed. She turned to Thomas, whose expression had softened, a look of relief in his eyes. "Thank you," he whispered. "We can finally rest." The spirits began to fade, their forms dissolving into the mist. The temperature rose and the oppressive weight lifted from the room. Olivia knew that the spirits had found peace at last. The legal consequences for the owners were swift and severe. They were charged with gross negligence and manslaughter, and the community rallied to support the families of the victims. The warehouse, once a place of tragedy, was transformed into a memorial and community center dedicated to honoring the memory of the workers who had perished. Olivia stood before the completed memorial, her heart filled with a mix of sorrow and hope. She could feel the presence of the spirits, now at peace. She whispered a silent promise to them, vowing to continue fighting for justice and to ensure their story was never forgotten. The warehouse, haunted by its past, now stood as a testament to resilience and justice. And Olivia, having faced the darkness head-on, emerged stronger, ready to honor the past and build a brighter future. The confrontation with the warehouse owners had been a turning point, but the journey was not yet complete. Olivia knew that to truly honor the spirits, they needed to perform a ritual that would symbolically lay them to rest. With the legal proceedings ongoing and the community behind them, she and Jeff began to plan the final step. They consulted with Dr. Evelyn Sinclair, the paranormal expert who had helped them communicate with the spirits. She suggested a cleansing and appeasement ritual, one that would acknowledge the spirits' pain and offer them peace. The ritual would take place in the heart of the warehouse, where the fire had been most intense. As the night of the ritual approached, a sense of urgency filled the air. The warehouse was still active, but the haunting had lessened since the owner's confession. Olivia gathered the necessary items: candles, sage, and the letters from the deceased workers. Each element was chosen to represent the past, present, and future. The employees who had witnessed the hauntings joined Olivia, Jeff, and Dr. Sinclair in the warehouse. They formed a circle in the center of the room, the flickering candlelight casting long shadows on the walls. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation and reverence. Dr. Sinclair began the ritual by lighting the sage, the pungent smoke curling into the air. "Spirits of the warehouse," she intoned, her voice echoing in the vast space. "We acknowledge your pain, your suffering. We honor your memories and seek to bring you peace." Olivia stepped forward, holding the letters tightly. "These letters are a testament to your lives, your dreams, and your untimely deaths. We have fought to uncover the truth and to bring justice in your name." The temperature dropped slightly, and the faint whispering of the spirits filled the air. Olivia felt a cold hand brush against hers, and she knew Thomas was with them. Jeff added, "We ask for your forgiveness. We hope that our actions have shown you that your sacrifices were not in vain." Dr. Sinclair continued the ritual, chanting softly as she moved around the circle, the sage smoke cleansing the space. The whispers grew louder, and the ghostly forms of the workers began to appear, their faces no longer twisted in anger, but softened with gratitude. Olivia placed the letters in the center of the circle, lighting them with a candle. The flames consumed the paper, the smoke rising towards the ceiling, carrying the spirit's stories into the ether. As the fire burned, a sudden gust of wind swept through the warehouse, extinguishing the candles. The room was plunged into darkness, and for a moment, there was a profound silence. Then, a soft, radiant light filled the space, illuminating the ghostly figures one last time. Thomas stepped forward, his form more solid than ever. "Thank you," he said, his voice filled with a mix of relief and gratitude. "You have given us peace. We can finally move on." Olivia felt tears prick her eyes as she nodded. "Thank you, Thomas. Your story will never be forgotten." The spirits began to fade, their forms dissolving into the light. The warehouse seemed to breathe a sigh of relief, the oppressive weight lifting entirely. The temperature warmed and the sense of peace was almost tangible. Dr. Sinclair smiled, her eyes shining. It's done. They found their rest. The employees hugged one another, their relief and joy evident. Olivia felt a deep sense of fulfillment. They had faced the darkness, confronted the past, and emerged victorious. The next day, the warehouse was quiet, the usual hustle and bustle subdued. The employees worked with a newfound sense of purpose, their fear replaced by hope. The memorial stood as a reminder of the past, a symbol of resilience and justice. Olivia reflected on the journey they had undertaken. They had uncovered a dark history, fought for justice, and laid the spirits to rest. The warehouse, once a place of sorrow and tragedy, was now a beacon of hope and remembrance. As she stood before the memorial, Olivia whispered a final promise to the spirits. We will honor your memories and ensure that your story is never forgotten. Rest in peace. The warehouse had been haunted by its past, but now, with the spirits at rest and justice served, it stood as a testament to the power of truth and the resilience of the human spirit. Olivia knew that they had not only confronted the past, but had also forged a brighter future, one built on the foundations of justice and remembrance. The days following the ritual were filled with a sense of calm that had eluded the warehouse for decades. The oppressive atmosphere had lifted, replaced by an air of peace and renewal. The employees worked with a renewed sense of purpose, their fears allayed by the knowledge that the spirits had found rest. Olivia watched with satisfaction as the warehouse was transformed into a place of productivity and hope. The memorial, now a central fixture, served as a daily reminder of the lives lost and the justice sought. The community, once skeptical, embraced the change and supported the ongoing legal battle against the owners. The trial against the warehouse owners was swift and decisive. The evidence gathered by Olivia and her team, combined with the public confession, left no room for doubt. The owners were found guilty of gross negligence and manslaughter, their sentences bringing a sense of closure to the families of the victims. As the legal proceedings wrapped up, Olivia took a moment to reflect on the journey. She stood before the memorial, the names of the deceased etched in stone, and felt a deep sense of fulfillment. They had not only uncovered the truth, but had ensured that the voices of the lost workers would never be silenced. One afternoon, as Olivia was finishing up some paperwork, Jeff knocked on her office door. "Got a minute?" he asked, a smile on his face. "Of course," Olivia replied, gesturing for him to sit. Jeff handed her a small box. "I found this while cleaning out some old storage rooms. Thought you might like to see it." Olivia opened the box to find a collection of photographs and personal items belonging to the workers who had perished in the fire. There were family photos, small trinkets, and letters, each item a poignant reminder of the lives lost. "Thank you, Jeff," Olivia said, her voice thick with emotion. "These will be perfect for the memorial." Together, they arranged the items around the memorial, creating a tribute that felt personal and deeply respectful. As they worked, Olivia felt a sense of connection to the workers, their stories now a part of the warehouse's legacy. That evening, the warehouse hosted a community gathering to commemorate the workers and to celebrate the new beginning. Families of the victims, employees, and local residents gathered to pay their respects and to honor the memory of those who had been lost. Olivia stood before the crowd, her heart full. "We have come a long way," she began, her voice steady. "This warehouse, once a place of tragedy, has become a symbol of resilience and hope. We have uncovered the truth, sought justice, and honored the memories of those who were lost. She paused, looking out at the faces before her. We will continue to honor their legacy by ensuring that this place remains a beacon of truth and justice. We will remember their stories and carry their lessons forward. The crowd erupted in applause, their support and solidarity palpable. As the evening continued with stories, laughter, and remembrance, Olivia felt a profound sense of community and connection. In the months that followed, the warehouse flourished. It became more than just a place of work. It became a community center, a place where people gathered to support one another, to learn, and to grow. The memorial remained a central fixture, a constant reminder of the past and a beacon for the future. Olivia continued to lead with compassion and determination, her experiences shaping her into a stronger and more empathetic leader. She knew that the journey they had undertaken would stay with her forever, a testament to the power of truth and the resilience of the human spirit. One evening, as she walked through the warehouse, she paused by the memorial. The names etched in stone glowed softly in the twilight, and she felt a sense of peace. The whispers of the past were gone, replaced by a quiet, enduring presence. "Thank you," she whispered, feeling the spirit's gratitude. "Rest in peace." The warehouse, once haunted by its tragic past, now stood as a symbol of resilience, justice, and hope. Olivia knew that they had honored the memories of the lost workers and had built a future that would ensure their stories were never forgotten. The journey had been difficult, but it had forged a stronger, more united community. As Olivia looked out at the warehouse, she felt a sense of fulfillment and peace. They had confronted the darkness and emerged victorious, their story a testament to the enduring power of truth and the strength of the human spirit.